Welcome to Coping with Ghosting, the podcast that provides hope, healing, and understanding for anyone who's been ghosted. I'm your host, Greta, and this show's all about radical acceptance and how it can help you heal after you've been ghosted. Joining us today is returning guest Dr. Terri Bacow, a widely known expert in cognitive behavioral therapy and evidence-based therapy approach. A Brown and Boston University graduate, she has authored several peer-reviewed papers based on her research and sees clients in her private practice in New York City. She's a media contributor and has been featured in Oprah and Vogue magazine, as well as various blogs and podcasts. Dr. Bacow supervises trainees in psychology and psychiatry at NYU and the Mount Sinai School of Medicine. She's also the author of Goodbye Anxiety, a guided journal for overcoming worry. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back.
It's my absolute pleasure. So let's just dive right in to radical acceptance. Could you share what that is with listeners?
Absolutely. So radical acceptance is a strategy designed to reduce the immense frustration and pain that comes from trying to change a situation or circumstance that can't be changed. It's abstract, but I'm going to break it down. It's making an empowered choice to peacefully accept rather than fight against a painful situation. Radical acceptance about accepting that something sucks and there's not much you could do about it, and that's okay. The reason that this is a powerful strategy is that when we reject reality, it doesn't change reality. And further, it's absolutely exhausting to try to rebel against a circumstance that can't be changed. It's a waste of time. It also takes up so much emotional energy. And when we really mire ourselves in, this is so unfair, it can make us miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely been miserable because I couldn't radically accept the fact that I was ghosted. So, how can radical acceptance help people who have been ghosted?
So, as I mentioned before our podcast, I really think radical acceptance is the strategy for ghosting. It's what I would recommend number one. And the reason for that is that ghosting is the ultimate circumstance that is out of one's control. When we are ghosted, the power is removed from us, and there is nothing that we can do about it. Radical acceptance is explicitly designed for circumstances outside of our control. And, when we're ghosted, it's so baffling. We spend all this time wondering, why? Why did this happen? What did I do? And there's so much anger, which takes up so much energy. So, in contrast, if you radically accept this happened, it sucks, nothing I could do. I mean, it's sort of a really kind version of it is what it is. Then you feel liberated. You're liberated from the prison of suffering that comes from rejecting reality. And once you reduce the noise that comes from how much you hate a given circumstance, you can really better focus your energy on getting through it.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. What are some misconceptions about radical acceptance?
So I can think of three.
Okay.
The first is acceptance does not mean approval. Acceptance does not mean we like it. You don't have to like what is happening. I'm going to repeat that. Acceptance does not mean approval. I think that's a misconception. It's really important. Second, radical acceptance does not involve giving up. It doesn't mean rolling over, playing dead, It doesn't mean you're a doormat. It's not a passive strategy. It's an active one. It's making an empowered choice, a self-compassionate, empowered choice to relinquish your own suffering. And that leads me to the third kind of misconception, which is that I think some people think that radical acceptance will benefit the person who ghosted you or the circumstance that you're fighting against. When in reality, radical acceptance is a gift that we give to ourselves. It benefits us far more than it benefits the ghost or whomever is involved in the interaction.
Radical acceptance is indeed a gift. I've used it for so many things in my life, and it's just liberating.
It is truly liberating and empowering.
Yeah. So, are there situations that radical acceptance don't apply to?
Surely, so radical acceptance is not a good strategy for a circumstance that is within your control, a circumstance that can be changed. If something can be changed, then we should use a different approach. We should use problem solving. We should think in a solution focused, proactive way. So, for example, if you get a bad grade on a test, that's something that is kind of within your control. You can study harder next time. You can speak to the professor. You can do extra credit. If maybe a friend is mad at you, you can apologize. You can reach out to the friend and try to repair the situation. So I think it's important to kind of decide which strategy to think about. Is this circumstance within my control? Is this something that can be changed? And if it can be changed, try to change it.
Yes. And two situations are coming to mind, like abuse. If somebody's in an abusive relationship, radical acceptance is unhelpful.
Yes.
Yeah. And one I'm very familiar with, burnout. Burnout is another thing where, okay, I see the steps to getting out of this.
Correct. Those are great examples. Burnout in particular, I think people feel powerless. They feel helpless. Also in abusive relationships, they feel the sense of loss of control when in fact the situation is controllable. It's just difficult. You need support. You need maybe professional help or friendship or someone to help you. But there are steps to be taken to improve.
Yeah. So let's talk about action. How can someone who's been ghosted put radical acceptance into practice?
A person can put radical acceptance into practice by choosing to stop obsessing and ruminating and dwelling on the ghosting situation. When we get ghosted, we really go down the path of a rabbit hole of obsession. Why did it happen? What did I do? What could I have done differently? When, in fact, there's nothing that we could have done differently. And the ghosting is not our fault. So the way to apply radical acceptance is to decide, this happened, this ghosting, and I don't like it. And I'm not going to waste my brain cells figuring out why it happened. So that's how we achieve liberation. We stop thinking about what we could have done differently. We relinquish anger. When we use radical acceptance, we could say, I am going to let go by accepting that life is unfair and people do unkind things for no good reason.
Yes. Yeah. It's painful, but it's true. And do you have any radical acceptance phrases or coping statements that could help with this?
Yes, I have 5 in particular that I really like that I'm going to share with you. The first one is, the situation massively sucks, but focusing on how much I hate it is going to make me feel miserable. The second is, rejecting reality does not change reality. The third is, acceptance does not mean approval.
Yes.
The next one is, Accepting being ghosted will free up my mental space for effective coping.
Okay.
And the last one is radical acceptance is how I take my power back.
Perfect. And I think these are excellent because people, when they're starting to feel that they are going down this rabbit hole, that their thoughts are spiraling, that they're ruminating, and they're beginning to feel almost out of control, these statements, which I encourage listeners to rewind, write them down, and put them in the notes app of your phone, because these are statements that you can go back to and read when you have these spiraling thoughts.
Absolutely. And coping statements, I'm so glad you brought that up because that is a great way of managing anxiety. Having kind of a mantra or affirmation, a soothing statement. It doesn't have to be overly positive. It has to be balanced and accurate, and it can make us feel so much better.
It's so true. And I have two of my own that I'd like to share as well. I cannot change the fact that I was ghosted, but I can choose how I'll respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I was ghosted, and I radically accept this. I will focus on what I know and what I can control.
Those are fantastic. They're so effective for so many reasons. In particular, I'd like to highlight the use of the word and. That's really powerful. Sometimes we use but. Of course, but is inevitable. We're going to use it in language. When it comes to radical acceptance, and it's about our choice. It kind of shows that two things could be true at the same time. They might seem to contradict each other, yet they could coexist.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing that we have in common is that we were both ghosted in high school by really good friends. If you could go back to high school and talk to yourself with your high school self, what would you say about being ghosted?
Oh my God, I wish I could. So first, I would like to put out there, I so wish that I could. So I think I would remind myself, I would say to myself that the situation is temporary and will last forever, that I don't deserve it, that the people who are winners in life are the ones who are going to treat me well, that I will have many, many friends in the future who will be kind and who will not ghost me, that there's hope that I will recover and not feel this way for the rest of my life, that these things happen that happen to everyone. It's a really almost ugly, unavoidable, especially for women and girls, rite of passage. It happened to everyone. And then I would put my psychologist hat on and I would tell myself the reason that ghosting happens is because people are poor communicators with poor social skills who have their own baggage and issues who often project onto us. Usually, they either have some narcissism or some deep insecurity.
Mhm.
Ghosting is not about us, it is not our fault. I would say to myself, this is not your fault. This is so much more about the other person than about you.
I got goosebumps. I got chills. That was really touching and powerful. And I wish I could go back to my high school self and hear those words, you know? I mean, I can't change the past, and I'm so glad we know what we know so we can pass this information on. Hopefully, there's people in high school who are listening and feel soothed from what we would say to our high school selves.
Yes. And this happens across the age spectrum. I'm
Yeah,
sure
I know.
we speak to people who report that, elementary school, college,
Yeah.
middle age, it happens across the spectrum. I just think in high school we're really vulnerable. We don't know what we know now. And that's why it's such a vulnerable moment.
Yes. Yeah. I have people in my private Facebook group and people that I coach about being ghosted who are 70 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all ages. You're right. What resources can people turn to for more information about radical acceptance?
Yes. So radical acceptance comes from a therapy approach that psychologists call dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT.
Mhm.
DBT is great. It's a package of skills, a package of tools, the different modules. Radical acceptance comes from the distress tolerance module of DBT. And DBT was founded by a psychologist called Marsha Linehan. She had a great TED talk. So I always recommend Marsha Linehan TED Talk. It's 10 minutes. You can get a lot out of it. If you're a reader, I recommend the book Radical Acceptance by Terri Bacow.
Yes.
If you are a reader, but maybe you have less of attention span or time, I actually recommend my book. So I wrote this book called Goodbye Anxiety, a guided journal for overcoming worry, that is written with young folks in mind. Although anyone can read it, really, young adults and teenagers. And I have a page or two just devoted to this topic, as well as adjacent topics like self-esteem, comparison, perfectionism. So a lot of social matters come up in this book, which are challenging for young folks. So I do recommend my book. But then, while I don't ever want to take away from your podcast, which is amazing, if you are a podcast listener, there's a DBT focused podcast called House on Fire, and they have one or more episodes devoted entirely to radical acceptance.
Amazing. I'm going to check out those resources, and your book is excellent. Everybody should go get it. So we'll have a link directly to that for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any final words about ghosting or being ghosted that you'd like to share?
Yes. So ghosting is an unbelievably painful experience. I would not wish it on anyone. It's also, again, particularly if you're female, this is my belief, unavoidable. It's going to happen to you because it happened to everyone. And it has the most toxic combination in the sense of being both abrupt and traumatic. If you could think of something that's abrupt, where you're blindsided, you don't see it coming, and deeply upsetting, there's that trauma piece. So I think that it's important to be kind to yourself, to not downplay it, to seek support, to seek either therapy or to talk to your friends about it, but to not feel shame. I think shame is so toxic, it's so unnecessary, since ghosting is entirely unrelated to us, and anything we have done is so much more about the other person and their shortcomings. And in fact, I would say ghosting is, in psychology terms, the ultimate form of avoidance, and it involves cowardice, to be honest, in the sense that when we're anxious, we avoid. And so what ghosting is the other person avoiding having a tough conversation. They can't handle it, so they avoid. And that is understandable, but it's cowardly, and we don't deserve that.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this. How can listeners connect with you?
So listeners could, if they enjoy social media, find me on Instagram at Dr. Terri Bacow. So that's Dr. Terri Bacow with the Dr. And my website similarly is drterribacow.com. And then if you would like to buy my book, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it Walmart, Barnes and Noble.
Nice.
Many independent booksellers sell it as well. And you could get the paper version or the Kindle version.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. And Thank you just so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today about radical acceptance. I love it.
Me too. This was a great topic. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And listeners, I invite you to follow at Coping with Ghosting on social media. Join the free and private Coping with Ghosting Facebook support group. And please leave a rating for this show. Your feedback helps spread a message of hope. And finally, remember, when you're ghosted, you have more time to connect with yourself and people who have stellar communication skills. You deserve the best.